We live? All right, lady. All right, guys. Welcome back to the fucking Unrepeatable show, baby. Today we got a little different kind of podcast going on. We got a little solo podcast. Just me, the host, Nicholas Daly, baby. We're going to make this a little interesting. We normally have some guys on the podcast to shoot the shit, but it's Christmas weekend now, man. Like, nobody really wants to come on the pod. They're all hanging out with family, which makes sense. Hope you guys are having a great Christmas. And hope you guys enjoy this podcast. Let's all take a deep breath in. Exhale. Let's fix our posture a little bit if you can. Get a little sippy poo, get a little drink in you, and try to enjoy the podcast, man. I hope you guys like it. New style. But yeah, man, we're just hopping into this podcast, solo edition. Just me, the host, Nick Daly. For anybody just kind of tuning into the podcast for the first time, the Unrepeatable show. To our new viewers, welcome. To our fucking fellow followers that have been here forever, the 5-10 of you boys. Appreciate you as always. But, well, let's just get right into it. People have been asking me this big question lately, why I started the podcast. Or, like, why am I doing this stuff? Or why I'm putting myself on camera and, like, showing myself to the world like this. And my response to that whole thing is, like, I enjoy the editing process. Like, I enjoy sitting down at my computer, man, and just doing, like, the tiny things, like making sure everything's zoomed up correctly, like how I can control how I want to have it. You know what I mean? Like, that's fun for me. Like, I was huge into gaming back in the day, man. Like, when Fortnite came out, huge Fortnite mans. Like, I'd outbuild anybody. Shout out Sam Baker. He knows I'm the dominant fish. And anybody, that reference goes back to, like, the characters they have on the Fortnite show, man. Like, they used to have a fish on there, and me and my buddy would just grind, him and me, and we would be the fishes, man. And I'd call myself the most dominant fish. It's kind of an inside story, but whoever plays Fortnite knows those guys, those characters, the fish boys. But yeah, man. But I kind of realized that just grinding Fortnite or grinding video games and spending 8 hours of my day, like, just playing. And I noticed I didn't do anything with my life with those 8 hours. So I was more like, fuck. I kind of hit a realization, like, shit, like, I'm grinding, I'm getting pretty good at these games, and I'm, like, playing my boys all the time, but, like, nothing's coming out of this. You know what I mean? Like, at that point, you could join tournaments and possibly make money, but, like, you had to spend, like, 24 hours on that game to be able to even be able to be, like, top 100, man. And even me, man, spending 8 hours a day back in the day in Kelowna, man, when I got injured, I would spend 8 hours a day with Baker, man. We would just grind that shit, and it was just so much fun, man. But kind of realized, like, that I wasn't going anywhere with it. So, like, when I got into editing, man, it was just kind of felt like it was a game for itself. So I translated over to that, and it was like me on the computer just doing my little game. Like, I was an Xbox boy. Like, anybody who games out there, I'm an Xbox guy. A lot of people jumped on the PC vibe after the day, but the console I used was, like, Xbox, man. Like, I, like, just grinded Xbox, and I didn't even have the new fucking Xbox Elite or anything. I had just the white one. But boys would fucking jump on the PC, man, and try to get better than me, but I would upgrade, and I would get, like, the Elite 360 remote with the paddles on the back, man, and just grind so hard, man. And just one day I realized, like, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, spending 8 hours a day, like, mastering these tricks with my hands and everything. And I'm like, what the fuck's coming out of this, man? Like, nothing at all. Other than me gaming with the boys. Like, that was the one fun part of it. Like, I'd always, like, jump on, and, like, the guys we haven't seen forever from different schools or different parts of where you've played football, you could always just jump on and play with them, man, and catch up. But after 8 hours, man, I kind of realized, like, fuck, maybe I didn't need to spend 8 hours with my boy like that and not do anything with my life. But that was at a point where I was in, like, university or in, like, Kelowna and junior, where, like, I was still young, and, like, I had, like, a scholarship, and I had, like, a decent job, and I didn't need to, like, really realize, like, man, like, I need to do something in my life because I just had football, right? And I had a plan of finishing my degree and everything, but so I just sat there, and on my spare time, I didn't need to find a new job. I didn't need to find an extra way of money. Like, that's how I wasn't thinking, man. I just thought, yeah, I'll play football and do this and play video games, and never thought that one day I'm actually going to need this money at some point. But when I look back at it, man, I wish I was just grinding editing or grinding this podcast, because like if I did that like 4 years ago, I could imagine where it'd be right now. And like I have games still, and then nothing's come out of it in 4 years. But even like now, man, just starting this podcast with like these last 3 months, like so many people have been reaching out and just enjoying it. But it's been awesome. But back into the editing format of it, like how I enjoy editing is like basically how I used to like gaming. Like when I was gaming, man, I always wanted to be the best. I wanted to feel like I could beat anybody, beat all my friend groups, be the best of my friend group, right? So you'd figure out these techniques, or like every day you grind these little things. When I'm editing, man, I always want to get better. So when I make a new reel or I make a new post, man, it's like I want to get better from the previous post. I look at other people's, I look at people who are famous, and I'm trying to be like, how can I make it like that? You know, look identical to that with like lower equipment and lower stuff. But when I'm on the computer, it's like you can drag and drop, and it feels like you're gaming and you're almost creating your own thing. And that's when I started to realize, instead of like giving money to these games that like are just using your fucking money, maybe I can go create these kind of, not games, man, but like fucking content out there that people might enjoy, and I might make money off it. So they might consume it like I used to consume games. So that's kind of the reason why I got into podcasting, just because like it's a hobby. You know what I mean? I didn't join it to be a celebrity, or I didn't join it to get my name out there. A lot of people are like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? Like a lot of people don't have the balls, or like don't want to put their face on camera and don't want to like say stuff or say the truth sometimes. And for me personally, man, it's like I have a hard time talking on camera or talking by myself or talking like personally. I have a hard time talking in public or talking to big groups of people or even talking on camera, man. So like this is something that challenged myself and like challenged how I talk to people and how like I communicate with others and how I can have a conversation. And each one of these podcasts, man, like each one of the guests that hop on it, like I think this is episode 10, and I think we've had 9 different guests, or like I think we had a few like reoccurring ones with Moore and Jeremy, but each individual guest, man, it's just been a pleasure. Like we just sit here, we just shoot the shit, man, in my basement, and we just fucking, it's just awesome. You know what I mean? Like you get to ask questions that you normally don't ask in public. Like if we're at the gym or we're at football or wherever I know this person or know this guest from, it's like you don't normally have these kind of conversations, man. You know what I mean? They come down here and they get a little deeper, and you ask these questions like, where's your family? Or how's all this? You know what I mean? Like, it's not just the basic, like, hey, how's the weather outside, eh? You know? Fuck. And I also wanted to get I also did want to get my name out there a little more, you know? Being as a professional athlete, we have an off season, man. And you know what I mean? Like, I'd really, I'm not 100% sure what I want to do after football yet. Like, I always thought about being a firefighter like my dad, or even being a cop even, you know what I mean? Like, something not sitting behind like a desk my whole life. So, you know what I mean? So maybe I could just would pop off, or maybe you get opportunities from this. You never know. So that's kind of what I'm looking at this for. Hopefully just grinding it, man. And like just getting to know people, man. That's why this podcast is created. I want to get people's stories out there. I feel like people in Regina, it's a tiny city. I feel like a lot of people know each other, but there's a lot of people around Canada that don't know that Regina or Saskatchewan is even a fucking thing. I feel like, you know what I mean? Like this Saskatchewan, you know what I mean? Like people just feel like make fun of it, just like a plain flat land, man. But we got a couple interesting people here. And me playing on the Riders, man, I feel like we have a lot of guys coming and going, and their stories are literally unbelievable. Like every year, man, the team's different, sadly. You know what I mean? Like you wish you could keep that core group of guys together every year, but sadly you can't. So like every year, man, you get like I got a couple guys on this year from the podcast. They had crazy stories, like Henry Neal's podcast, man, like him from South Africa and his journey from never like kicking, and his first game kicking was in a fucking professional football game, man, like crazy. And even DeMarcus and Kenny from the first fucking episode, man, like these guys have cool stories, man. And like these friendships and bonds we're making on this podcast, I feel like you guys can like see that, and I feel like you guys are a part of that, man. Like this journey is nothing without you guys. You know what I mean? And I hope you guys are really enjoying it. I got a question today. Somebody asked me like, who do I watch when I watch podcasts? And that was a really good question, man, because like a year ago, I think it was a year ago or a year and a half ago, right when it was the end of COVID, you know what I mean? I was grinding for Winnipeg camp. You know what I mean? When I got drafted by Winnipeg. And I would just watch Joe Rogan podcasts, man. And I'd watch like the older ones. I watched like the David Goggins ones, the Elon Musk ones. And they would all like just like they were just so interesting, man. And they were like 3 hours long, and I could just throw it on. I could cook. I could go to the gym. I could go like do some homework. I would do anything, man. And I could just have this podcast running in the background. And I felt like it was like I was learning something every day. You know what I mean? It wasn't just listening to music and getting pumped up, because I would do that all the time at the gym. I'd just get pumped up on music or like pop music and shit. And I'd come home and I'd just listen to more music, right? And I think I just got sick of music because there was no music out there, man. So I started throwing on these podcasts. And they were just like, they were teaching me things, and at the same time, just sitting there and learning. You know what I mean? I wish school was that fucking easy. Just sitting there, throwing a podcast on and learning like that. But one day they might create something like that, man. But that's the main guy I watch, is the Joe Rogan, man. I like watching Sugar Sean O'Malley, man. The Jobins. Fucking Jobins, shout out Sugar. UFC fighter. I don't know how many of the guys in Regina would know him, but really famous. He has a good podcast. And who else do I watch? Yeah, and really just the Joe Rogan, David Goggins podcast, man. Like, those are good. Oh, and the Michael Bisping podcast, man. Great podcast. Bunch of UFC. I'm huge in the UFC, actually. As you can see, that the 2 podcasts out of the 3 ones I listen to are UFC based. But crazy, man. I think just after football, I think I really want to get into a UFC or a boxing or something like that. I feel like it's really cool, and it's like you have to learn a lot of things. Like, I feel like UFC would be really, really hard to learn at like 25, or like when I'm done football, hopefully like around 30, man. I feel like it'd be hard, but I wouldn't want to like compete to be the best or something. But I know it'd be hard because that's what I do my whole life. Everything I do in my life, I want to compete to be the best. But hopefully at that point in my life, I just want to like compete and like have a couple boys and just do some jits or do some kickboxing or do some boxing, man. I feel like it's cool because it's like, you're learning how to protect yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you're not just doing a sport. Like, I feel like if you're going out in public and someone jumps you or something, man, like, you at least know how to protect yourself. And I feel like a lot of people say they can protect themselves, like, regardless if they don't know how to, like, do jiu-jitsu or fight, man. But if you had that backing, man, and you just felt confident in yourself, I feel like it'd be a good skill to have. You know what I mean? And I feel like every time I go on the football field, man, or I get in my head and I'm like, oh shit, man, this guy's huge. I don't know how to block this motherfucker, or he might fuck me up. I always say to myself, is like, just imagine those UFC fighters out there, bro. Like, those guys are going out there fucking one-on-one, man, in front of like 60,000 people, in front of their families watching everything. And there's a high chance you're going to get knocked the fuck out on live TV in front of everybody and become a meme, man. And that doesn't happen in football. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you might get tackled hard, you might get blindsided, but you're not going to get knocked the fuck out or feel like you just got dehumanized in front of like everybody. You know what I mean? So every time I think I'm struggling in football or it's too hard, I always think about a UFC fighter in their lives and their jobs. You know what I mean? And how they fight in front of their families. Like, I couldn't imagine going out there and getting knocked out and going back home and saying, hey guys, good fight, man. Great fight. Yeah, you did good, bro. And just being knocked out fucking cold. Like, I wouldn't even know what to do. You know what I mean? And I don't even know how those guys even come back and be able to fight again, and how they just keep going. But it's just a livelihood for them. But so I think those like UFC fighters are the toughest motherfuckers in the world. Like, those guys go out there and they're gonna like willing to die in the cage. Like, I know we say we're willing to die out there in football and willing to take those hits, man, but UFC fighters are willing to fucking die in there. That's crazy, bro. Crazy. And that's actually it's a good spin off on what we got another question in here actually. Is somebody asked me, is what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of? That is a good question. I am scared of heights. Like, absolutely scared. Like, I'd probably go on top of this house right now, and if I look down, I'd fucking shit myself. Well, not shit myself, but I'd be like, my legs would be just shaking. You know what I mean? My stomach would drop, and I wouldn't even understand. You know what I mean? And just being on top of the house, and it wouldn't even be that, like, you could jump and still live. You know what I mean? So when I get up in a high story or like a high building, man, I'm just scared shitless, man. I don't think I could ever go fucking bungee jumping or parachuting or anything like that. I don't know why. It's not like I had a bad experience back in my past or anything. I'm just anxious as fuck, man, if I look down on heights. Like, that shit just scares me. Like, just scares the fuck out of me. And what else would I be afraid of, man? That is a good question. What are you afraid of? I'm trying to be vulnerable on this podcast right now, hey? Trying to make me vulnerable, hey? Heights. And, man, just big crowds, man. You know what I mean? Like, when you're going out, like, even this Grey Cup weekend that we had here a couple months ago in November, or just a month ago, I guess. Like, just huge crowds. Like, just people walking around, bumping each other. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? Or just people looking at you for, like, 10 seconds or staring at you. And I'm like, I'm like, I don't know, maybe that's just an anxious thing or something, but like that's what I'm afraid of that shit, like just huge crowds, and like I'd have to be drunk or something to like get that done with, you know what I mean? Like, and it's weird because I'm a football player and everything, and you play in front of 30,000 fans, but fuck, sometimes with big crowds, man, I'm just like shit, it's a little too much for me. But you know what I mean? I never let it be too much. I'd always like put on a good face and be like, you know what I mean? I'm here and I can do what I can, but sometimes, man, I'm like, Jesus, what the fuck is going on here? But solid question, solid question. Do we have any other questions in here? Any other questions? Let me look. Oh, we got another question. That's a good question right there. Advice for young leaders. Advice for young leaders. I like how they put young in there. Like not just a leader. What advice for any leader and advice for a young leader is do what you think is right. You know what I mean? A lot of people are going to tell you what is right and what is wrong. And they might have a fucking rule book on what is right and what is wrong. But but at the end of the day, it's up to you to decide what is wrong and what is right. You know what I mean? You go out there and you decide what is fucking wrong and right. And you know what I mean? You might have to learn the hard way and fucking, oh shit, you might have thought that was the right way, but it was the wrong way. You know what I mean? And that's what a young leader has to go through. A young leader isn't going to be the fucking stud all the time. He's going to fuck up. You know what I mean? He's going to go in there and he's going to think he knows everything. But he's going to fuck up sometimes. But when he fucks up, bro, that's when that young leader becomes a fucking leader. Is then he steps up and keeps going and keeps fucking saying what he preaches and keeps doing or fixes what he needs to do and continues, man. That's what makes a leader, bro. People who continue to fucking strive for greatness. I feel like a young leader goes through shit. You know what I mean? Like, they fucking thought they could do something and they couldn't. You know what I mean? But they said, you know what, fuck it. You know what I can? I'm going to go up there and try it again. And they couldn't do it again. And you know what? They said, fuck it. I'm going to go do it. I'm going to try to fix it. I'm going to find my own way and I'm going to get it done. And then they get that shit done, bro. And that's how they become a fucking leader. You know what I mean? And they just have it in them. I feel like there's a lot of people out there right now that just like, they go out there and they'll be like, I'm going to go try this shit out. Fails. I'm like, oh, I guess it wasn't worth it. Wasn't worth it for me. I'm not going to do it anymore. But I'm like, bro, if you just fucking tried it one more time or somebody told them to go do it again, they might have fucking pushed through, man. And they might have found the greatest thing ever. So to me, man, I would just say to young leaders, man, do what you think is right and keep fucking pushing forward. You know what I mean? You're going to go through hard times. It's not going to be fucking easy. You're going to fail multiple times in your life. But fucking just keep pushing and keep doing what you think is right. You know what I mean? You know what is right, man. In the bottom of your heart, you'll know what's right. You know what I mean? Nobody can decide for you. You know what I mean? Go do your thing, bro. Do your thing, young king. It's a weird question. How you ended up in the industry? Would that be football or like podcasting? Well, let's answer both of them. Let's do it. How I ended up in the industry of football was my parents fucking put me in when I was like in the sport when I was like 8 years old, man. And yeah, they just kind of went to practice one day and I fucking hated it. Like, you know what I mean? I couldn't take my helmet off or I couldn't put it on without getting my parents to snap it back on my head. And I was like, what the hell is this, man? Why are these pads so heavy? Why are these helmets so heavy? And then they made us do like 2 laps around like the park. And I'm like, man, I can't get even through one of these laps without like really breathing really hard. I remember going home that day and saying like, I'm never playing football again. And then my dad was like, nah, man, you going back in there. You're going to continue this shit. And then after a while, I realized that like I was pretty good at it, or I was bigger than most people, and I could just like be dominant at the sport at a young age. And I just hit hard. You know what I mean? I wasn't fast or I wasn't in condition, but I could hit guys really hard, and I enjoyed that. So after a while, I'm like, you know what I mean? This might be fun. You know what I mean? But the first 2 years, I really hated it. But that's how I got into the industry. My parents put me in when I was 8, and I just enjoyed it, I guess, after a while, and it just kind of became my thing. You know what I mean? In high school, started actually being really good at it and people started noticing and just kind of said, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like I started being kind of known and people saying my name and shit. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing this shit. It makes me happy. It makes other people's happy. It makes fucking fans happy. It makes the coaches happy. It makes the teachers happy when we win, man. And I'm helping out doing that shit. So that's kind of what I found my own thing and got into it. And I guess the podcasting industry, man, I got into that when I not the podcasting industry, but like just editing YouTube videos kind of goes through the football industry. When I was in high school in grade 10, man, when you started wanting to get recruited out there, you had to start making YouTube videos or making highlight videos. And I'm like, I don't have the fucking money, nor did my parents have the money to go make a highlight video somewhere. They're like $100 or like $200. I'm like, well, I'm gonna go try to make this shit. So I downloaded iMovie, man, and I just kind of make the circles around myself and put like a hype music over it, and then I posted it on YouTube. And a couple of them went viral or like got a couple thousand views because nobody really did that back then, right? And then we're in Canada and Regina anyways, we were doing it. And then after a while, people were just grinding these things out. Everybody was making one, man, and I just enjoyed it. I made some for other people, and it was just a thing. I didn't really like consistently do it at all, but I used to, for like our projects in university or high school, if anything video wise, I would just be able to do it. And I think like 2 years ago, man, I bought Final Cut Pro, and it was a good program. It was like a $400 program, the step up from iMovie. And I just decided to grind that in YouTube tutorials, man, and fucking just did my thing. And like I said, I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? And I just fucking just enjoyed it. Like treated it like gaming. And as soon as I got to go over that gaming phase, like we talked about, man, I just was straight editing. And I realized I could maybe make some money doing this and making edits for people, making logos for people, doing my thing. You know what I mean? So I really enjoyed it. And when you get older, man, you realize you need to make some money. So it's not just playing video games anymore. It's making money. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into these industries. One thing I wanted to start doing in this podcast too, on one of these solo podcasts, every time we do one of these, I wanted to read a page or two of the book I'm reading that week. I just feel like a lot of viewers or maybe people out there would take a lesson from it or something. So the book I'm reading this week is the Teaching of Buddha. I don't know, man. I'm a Catholic, like a born and bred Catholic. I guess my parents took me to church my whole life, and I was a Catholic, man. But the more I grow up, the more I realize the fucking Bible isn't like, I feel like I can't follow that to a T all the time. You know what I mean? And I also think like the science version and all that stuff. So I wouldn't discredit the church or anything. Like, you know what I mean? They're doing their thing. Everybody has their own views, which is completely agreeable, man. Like, you go do your thing. Every religion is perfectly fine. Like, people love each other. That's all that matters. And that's why I think I'm more leaning into like Buddhism and fucking enlightenment. It's just everywhere, man. It's just do what you want to do, and he's just around you. You know what I mean? There's not like this and that, and you have to do this and that. You know what I mean? So I'm just gonna read you a page of this and see what you guys think. The ways of practice. For those who seek enlightenment, there are 3 ways of practice that must be understood and followed. First, disciplines for practical behavior. Second, right concentration of mind. And third, wisdom. What are disciplines? Everyone, whether he is a common man or a way seeker, should follow these precepts for good behavior. He should control both his mind and body and guard the gates of his 5 senses. He should be afraid of even a trifling evil, and from a moment to moment should endeavor to practice only good deeds. What is meant by the concentration of mind? It means to get quickly away from greedy and evil desires as they arise, and to hold the mind pure and tranquil. What is wisdom? It is the ability to perfectly understand and to patiently accept the fourfold noble truth, to know the fact of suffering and its nature, to know the sources of suffering, to know what constitutes the end of suffering, and to know the noble path that leads to the end of suffering. Those who earnestly follow these 3 ways of practice may righteously be called the disciples of Buddha. Suppose a donkey, that he has no nice shape, no voice, and no horns like those of the cow, was following a herd of cows, and proclaiming, "Look, I am also a cow." Would anyone believe him? It is just a foolish when a man does not follow the 3 ways of practice, but boasts that he is a way seeker or a disciple of Buddha. Before a farmer gathers a harvest in the fall, he must first plow the ground, sow the seed, irrigate, and remove the weeds as they come up in the springtime. Likewise, the seeker of enlightenment must follow the 3 ways of practice. A farmer cannot expect to see the buds today, to see the plants tomorrow, and to gather the harvest the day after. So a man who seeks enlightenment cannot expect to remove worldly desires today, to remove attachments and evil desires tomorrow, and to get enlightenment the day after. Just as plants receive the patient care of the farmer after the seeds has been sown and during the changes of the climate, and during the growth from plant to fruit, so the seeker of enlightenment must patiently and perseveringly cultivate the soil of enlightenment by following the 3 ways of practice. So yeah, let me know if you guys like that. Nothing personal, really. It's just kind of a book I'm really getting into. Like I said, I'm really getting into Buddhism. Like, I'm really enjoying it. Like, I'm really enjoying just learning different religions, man, and learning what people think. And it's really fucking interesting. Like, let me know what you guys think. If you guys want to hear another page of this, or if I want to continue these books going on forward, like, let me know. It's just a thing, man. We're just vibing over here. It's just the Unrepeatable show with Nick, you know? But yeah, man, I think that's the end of the podcast. It's a little quick one, you know, a little quick solo with the host. You feel me? But I wanted to end these podcasts with a quote of the day. And every day I think we're gonna have a different quote for this podcast. But today the quote is good or bad, deal with all things with grace. And then I saw that on Instagram post. I figured some athlete posted it, man. But it just hit me, man. You know what I mean? Like good or bad, just deal with things with grace. You know what I mean? Just deal with it with grace. You know what I mean? Like somebody might be right, somebody might be wrong, man. But like, don't get angry. Don't get too upset. Don't get too happy. You know what I mean? Just kind of just play it cool, because you never know what might happen. You know what I mean? You know, and you don't know what people are dealing with behind fucking closed doors as well. Hope you guys enjoy this kind of podcast. Hope you guys enjoy the solo podcast. We'll catch you guys later. Peace.